funding, ESG, HAP, questions, and then we will adjourn. Let me put my phone on mute so that doesn't happen again. Okay, do we have any questions before we begin? Anyone have anything before we get going? No? Okay. Okay, so welcome and introductions. My name is Amy Primrose Puente. I'm a senior program specialist here at the Housing and Workforce Solutions Office of Homeless Services. Good morning. I will be facilitating this meeting, but I would like to just turn it over to Miss Mireya Orozco so that she can introduce herself. She is the HAP program manager. Mireya, can you say hi?
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all. My name is Mireya Orozco. I am a program specialist here with the Housing and Workforce Solutions. A lot of you look very familiar, so I'm sure I look familiar to you all. Welcome and thank you, Amy.
All right, thank you, Mireya. And Roshana is, I'm not sure if Roshana is here. Roshana, Tanya, or Emma? No, they'll probably be hopping in a few minutes. So if we see them, we'll have them introduce themselves then. All right, so we'll go into the competitive bidding process. All available funding listed in the request for proposal COARC 0028 will be awarded through a competitive bidding process. All submitted proposals need to be emailed to coc@rivco.org by June 2nd, 2025 by 5 p.m. If applying for multiple projects, please ensure you submit a separate scope of work for each project. Ensure you complete all applicable areas of the application, and late project applications will not be reviewed. So make sure that you get it in by June 2nd, 5 p.m. The project selected through this request for RFP will be evaluated and ranked by an independent review panel. All funding recommendations will be approved by the Continuum of Care's Board of Governance. For this NOFO, the following projects will be considered for funding: homelessness prevention, street outreach, emergency shelter services, and rapid rehousing. Please note that all proposals received are considered initial proposals, and the final project scopes and awards will be determined based on service need. Applicants who fail to meet threshold eligibility requirements are deemed ineligible. Applications from ineligible applicants are not rated or ranked and will not receive funding. Applications will be evaluated based on the criteria to be appropriate by the county, which may include but not necessarily limited to the following: applicants' ability to meet qualification requirements for this funding, scoring criteria and bidders' response of this RFP, applicants' experience and ability to provide appropriate services, financials, technical capability, and project methodology, and any other factors the county determines to be appropriate. Applications will be given a thorough review. All communication during the application process and review selection phase may be directed to the primary HWS contact, and you can reach us at the coc@rivco.org email address, and I'll review that before our meeting's adjourned. Attempts by the applicant to contact any other county representative may result in disqualification of the applicant's application to this or any other solicitation. So it's very important that we adhere to the county's purchasing guidelines, and any questions that you may have regarding this request for proposal is directed to myself, Amy Primrose Puente, or the program manager for HAP, which is Mireya Orozco. And again, you can contact us at the coc@rivco.org. So RFP scoring. So it's the RFP will go through a competitive bid process. It's rated and ranked by independent review panelists. And the RFP scoring will be as such. Applications will be reviewed in the following areas: applicant eligibility, applicant spending history on past and current homeless assistant grants, if applicable, capacity of the applicant to perform as proposed, which could involve reviewing progress through data captured in HMIS or related reports, leveraging of other resources, participation within the continuum of care. The project must fill an identified gap, priority in the continuum of care system and be consistent with the goals and objectives of the system. Collaboration with community agencies for provision of additional supportive services, an agreement to participate in the local homeless management information system, and finally, agreement to participate in the coordinated entry system, CES. The application is based on 100 points and has a minimum threshold score of 60. Each rating factor includes a maximum number of pages per response. Any pages above the maximum length will not be reviewed or considered, so please make sure to stay within the requested pages. The RFP scoring, the scope of services program design is 40 points, cost effectiveness, 20 points, impact and effectiveness, 20 points, continuum of care requirements, 10 points, and implementation timeline, 10 points. Total application points, maximum points available is 100 points. The timeline of this request for proposal, excuse me, the release date was Friday, May 2nd, 2025. Myself and Mireya are your primary contacts. The last day to submit written questions and requests for interpretations is Friday, May 16th by 5 p.m. So any questions that you don't have answered today, you can submit to coc@rivco.org by May 16th at 5 p.m. And those answers will be posted on our COC NOFA website by Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 by 5 p.m. So last day to get your questions in is Friday, May 16th, and we'll have all answers, including the questions asked in this meeting, will be posted by Wednesday, May 21st at 5 p.m. on the COC's NOFA website. Tentative date for awarding the RFP would be approximately 60 days after the RFP closes. Populations to be served. Our target population with both funding sources, ESG and HHAP, are individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness. We have the general population, which is everybody experiencing homelessness in Riverside County. And then we have a specific pot of funding for service providers that are going to serve only youth. And that population, those population requirements are 18 to 24 years old, experiencing unsheltered homelessness within Riverside County. So, available funding. The County of Riverside's Department of Housing and Workforce Solutions Office of Homeless Services is seeking proposals from public, government, private, not-for-profit organizations qualified in providing emergency solutions grant, emergency shelter services, rapid rehousing services, and homelessness prevention services are the projects to be funded under the ESG funding. Under the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, HHAP, we have street outreach and coordination services, emergency shelter, and rapid rehousing services. One thing I would like to note going forward as we review the ESG and HHAP funding availability is that some of the projects are the same, but ESG refers to them different ways. For example, street outreach, and for ESG, it's just very simple street outreach, but for HAP, they say street outreach and coordination services. So it's the same projects, but they use a little bit different terminology. So for emergency solutions grant, we have $379,736 available under this RFP. And for HAP, we have $3,660,695.41. So we'll go over ESG funding first. The federal ESG program provides funds for a variety of activities to address homelessness as authorized under the Federal Homeless Emergency Assistance and Rapid Transition to Housing Act of 2009. And state program requirements and funding is made available pursuant to subtitle B of Title 5 of the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. The Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, administers the ESG program with funding received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, is the organization that administers ESG funding. So from here on out, that's what HCD will be considered ESG's funder. So if you are awarded and hear that terminology, HCD is our funder for ESG. For ESG, the period of performance will be for 12 months. The match requirement, applicants must have an identified dollar-for-dollar match for federal ESG funding with funds from other public or private sources. So ESG is a dollar-for-dollar match. ESG administrative costs. No funds will be allocated specifically for administrative costs for the 2024 ESG program. However, awardees may use indirect costs to help alleviate the administrative burden associated with administering the program. So for ESG, there is a dollar-for-dollar match, and there will be no admin costs for administering this grant, but we can allow for indirect costs to assist in the burden of administering the program. So the eligible projects to be funded under the Emergency Solutions Grant is Rapid Rehousing Services. Rapid rehousing services are intended to help individuals and families experiencing unsheltered homelessness, including people who are literally homeless and attempting to flee domestic violence, to transition from the streets or shelter into permanent housing as quickly as possible and achieve housing stability. The project components under rapid rehousing are short and medium-term rental assistance, housing relocation and stabilization services, and housing stability case management. The next project is homelessness prevention. ESG funds may be used to provide housing relocation and stabilization services and short or medium-term rental assistance necessary to prevent an individual or family from moving into an emergency shelter or another place described in paragraph 1 of the homeless definition in 24 CFR 576.2. Short and medium-term rental assistance, housing relocation, and stabilization services are the component project pieces under homelessness prevention for ESG. The final project that will be funded through the ESG program will be shelter services, shelter operations. Subject to the general conditions under 24 CFR 576. Funds may be used for costs of providing essential services to homeless families and individuals in emergency shelters, renovating buildings to be used as emergency shelter for homeless families and individuals, and operating emergency shelters. Okay, now we'll go over to Homeless Housing Assistance Prevention Program, HAP. HAP makes available grant allocations to cities, counties, and continuums of care with flexible funding to prevent and end homelessness in their region. HAP funding will support the Pathways to Home project, which is a network of homeless service providers working together to create an efficient process for securing permanent housing. This initiative encompasses street outreach, emergency shelter, and rapid rehousing services. By promoting collaboration among outreach and shelter providers, this partnership offers direct access to essential housing resources, simplifying the path to permanent housing for individuals experiencing homelessness in Riverside County. The HAP period of performance will be through December 31st, 2027. The HAP expenditure deadline is a very strict deadline. 50% of all funds received must be expended by 6/30/2026. The HAP administrative costs are available and capped at 5%. There is no HAP match for HAP awards, so that's really helpful. The available funding for HAP, we have street outreach, rental assistance and rapid rehousing and interim shelter. Street outreach, we have 1.5 million. Rental assistance, we have $1,625,044.03. And interim shelter, we have 512,033 with 87 cents for a total for the general population of $3,125,044.03. And for the youth population for rapid rehousing is $535,651.38. So for HAP, we have two buckets of rapid rehousing funding. We have the general population, which is about 1.6 million. And then we have youth only for 651,038. So please note those differences. The 1.6 is for the general population. The 535,000 is for the youth. So for, we've already went over it for ESG, but the project descriptions are the same. They just use a little different terminology, the funders do, but the street outreach, where outreach teams engage directly with people experiencing literal homelessness, referring them to emergency shelters, assisting with documentation, housing navigation, and access to permanent housing, which is our ultimate goal. Emergency shelter, operating subsidies support emergency shelter operations. Emergency shelters will set aside beds for clients referred by the street outreach teams. Case managers will provide supportive services and direct linkage to the Pathway to Home project's rental assistance and rapid rehousing programs. The rental assistance and rapid rehousing programs provide rental subsidies and incentives to landlords, such as security deposits and holding fees. Rental assistance and rapid rehousing teams will receive referrals from the coordinated entry system that originate from Pathways to Home project providers to help individuals secure permanent housing. And that is an overview of our available funding opportunities, the RFP information. So now I know that I've seen a lot of questions come through the chat. So let me try to go through and answer as many as possible.
Amy, if you would like, I can read you off the questions. I have them noted.
Sure, that'd be super helpful. Thank you.
So the first question is this ESG grant state funded and different from county federal ESG? Can youth serving programs apply under all populations category?
Will you say the last part?
Can youth serving programs apply under all populations category?
So I'll do that. That was a two-parter. So the first part is that the emergency solutions grant are federal dollars, but the federal dollars are awarded to the state of California, and the state of California then through HCD administers. So we apply for these federal dollars from the state of California. The state of California awards and administers the ESG dollars that we receive. The second part of the question is yes, you can apply for a specific population for the general portion of available funding. However, I would like to caution you that we will be looking for county coverage. So the general population funding is likely going to be earmarked for all populations and not one specific one.
Thank you. Can you clarify insurance requirements? Do you require abuse liability insurance?
Hi, Ms. Sue. I know I saw that comment come in from you. I know that there are additional insurance requirements when serving the youth-specific population. And we have been working closely with our county council in identifying those because a lot of the insurance requirements have been increased. So I will clearly list the insurance requirements on the COC website when we list questions, Ms. Sue.
Okay. Can indirect be the 15% allowable by federal regulations?
The indirect for ESG, yes. And there is a certain methodology that has to be used when calculating that. So if awarded, we can work together, and ESG has a toolkit that we use, and it shows us exactly how to calculate. Just for example, you can't use the 15% de minimis rate to calculate any portion that's going directly to your clients. For example, the rental assistant portion will be exempt from the 15% de minimis rate, but all of the let's say salary, you can calculate the de minimis rate using the salary. So if you're awarded, I'm happy to send you the toolkit and work with you to create your budget so that we can maximize as much as we can for the indirect cost.
Okay, the next question, does an ESG and HAP proposal have to serve the cities in the RFP that do not have the asterisks, or can you still have a proposal that serves the cities with asterisks?
Oh, yes, you're free to choose whichever cities your agencies are able and capable to cover. Again, I will just provide a word of caution that it's always our goal to provide whole county coverage. So that's the lens that we're looking through when rating and ranking the proposals.
Okay, next question, is this HAP 5 funding?
This is HAP 5 funding, but there is also HAP 3 and HAP 4 in there. So we're not identifying which round because it's there's 3 different rounds.
When does HAP funding begin?
The HAP funding would begin upon contract execution and go through December 31st, 2027. 2026. No, 20. What was it, Medea?
Yeah, 2026.
2026. Okay, thank you.
And you kind of answered this question, but the next one is, are indirect costs funded? If yes, what is the percentage of the total budget?
The percentage of the total budget is 15% if your agency is authorized to use the de minimis rate. However, there is a specific methodology that needs to be employed when calculating your 15% de minimis rate. So if you, in the RFP, I've listed the website to the state of California, the HCD website, and you can find the the de minimis toolkit. So it'll tell you exactly how, and basically you're just taking out rental assistance, and any other funding that's supposed to go directly to the client doesn't qualify for the indirect cost. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions, but I think the toolkit on the HCD website will be very helpful.
The next question, does the 18 to 24 youth housing require that housing be entirely that age population, or can it be mixed with older adults?
The head of household is required to be the individual that's 18 to 24. So we all know that everyone doesn't fit neatly in a box. So my recommendation would be to get with Mireya, who's the HAP project manager. And, when you come up with cases that are very specific and unique, and she'll help you. But basically, if the 18 to 24-year-old is the head of household and they're taking care of 45-year-old mom, mom doesn't work, the youth is the one that works, the youth is the head of household, then we could do that route. But I'm going to just encourage you to get with the project manager, Medea, for HAP, for unique circumstances, and she'll help you navigate them.
Thanks, Amy. Next question, do we need to submit 2 applications, one for ESG and one for HAP?
That's a great question. We put all of this funding on one request for proposal to lessen the burden to our agencies. So it'll be one application. You just have to, in the RFP, there's a portion in the bidder's response where you're going to identify which funding source and which project you're applying for. So essentially it'll be one application. You'll just need to provide additional scopes for each project that you're applying for. So if you're applying for street outreach if you're applying for rapid rehousing ESG and rapid rehousing for HAP, you just need one application. You'll indicate on the bidder response that you're applying for rapid rehousing for HAP, rapid rehousing for ESG, and then you'll submit 2 separate proposals. So one application, but 2 separate proposals. And that's the same even if you are going to apply for the multiple projects under the same funding stream, you'll still need to provide a scope for each project. It doesn't matter the funding streams. If you're applying for more than one project, you need a specific scope for each project.
Okay, last question. I have a large home being renovated specifically for use as shared housing to support recovery and/or homeless populations. Can the RFP include capital costs to modify the existing home, for example, electric panel upgrade to support additional refrigeration or repair broken HVAC, etc.?
Well, it would really depend on which project you were applying for.
Amy,
Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna ask her to put her information in the chat because I'm thinking of maybe other ways we can support this.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Roshana.
Mhm.
Please put your information in the chat, and we can reach out.
And primarily,
Okay.
I'm thinking of Prop 47 and other dollars.
Yes, thank you, Roshana.
Next question, would you need 2 separate budgets as well for each program applied for?
Yes.
What is the max number of pages?
I'm sorry?
What is the max number of pages?
Each section has a max number. So just in the bidder's response, please just pay close attention to the directions of each section.
Okay, can we require sobriety in our housing, or can we only prohibit active use of drugs/alcohol or no use of drugs
That's
slash
a great
alcohol on property?
That's a great question. For all of the funding under this request for proposal COARC 0028, we will require a housing first model for all projects. So that that means that you cannot you cannot create any barriers that a normal landlord wouldn't create. So all projects funded under this RFP have to adhere to a housing first model.
Okay, next question. Is the max number of pages applicable per program or combined?
The maximum number of pages will be per program, per project.
And I think that's the last of our questions.
Okay.
And thank you, Amy,
Mia.
for putting your contact info in the chat.
So those were the questions we had on the chat. Did anybody want to take themselves off mute and ask a question? Or if you have another burning question, you are free to type it in the chat as well.
I do see one question. Is there a maximum award amount per organization?
No, sir, no. Julie, thank you. I see the question, Mireya. Julie asks, what is Pathways to Home? I'm just curious. Julie, it's a collaborative network of providers who are coming together to leverage each other's resources and partner to create a streamlined pathway to permanent housing. So the providers, each district has like a little collaborative, and that involves street outreach, shelter, and rapid rehousing. So the street outreach providers, when they're on the street working hard to get folks ready for housing, they're doing the housing navigation, getting all the documentation in order. And oftentimes we see that they've put in all this work, and when that individual is ready to take the next step into housing, there isn't any housing available, and then they have to wait, and oftentimes they're having to do double, triple, quadruple work because all the stars don't align all at the same time. So what's really exciting about the Pathways to Home project is because it involves a collaborative network of providers per region. When that street outreach worker is ready, they have all the documentation, this individual is ready to be housed, they can offer them a shelter, an immediate shelter bed within their region within the Pathways to Home collaborative. And then that individual goes to the shelter, and the shelter providers then work on the permanent housing piece with the rapid rehousing provider in the collaborative. And so basically the one service provider is handing the individual who's ready to be housed off to the next service provider until permanent housing is achieved. It's a really, really exciting model. We just started the pilot project here. We're still being stood up fully, but we're really excited about the benefits that it'll bring to not only our service providers, but the folks experiencing homelessness in Riverside County. Let's see, we have, is there a list of organization in this collaborative? Yes, we do have lists. It's district specific. So it's the agencies that were awarded through our last HAP RFP that created the Pathways to Home project. Like I said, it's a pilot project, and we're just getting started with it right now. So next question, is the state getting HAP funding from federal sources? No, HAP funding is from the state. It's not federal funding, it's state funding. When will the new PIT report be available? We are hopeful that it'll be available very end of May, June. It goes to the Board of Supervisors on May 20th, so we can expect a release soon after that. Miss Amy, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for everything you do for the homeless, for sure. I have a question when you talk about the pathways to home, and it's just recently being stood up by the districts.
Mhm.
So we should, the point of contact then would be under each of our districts' Board of Supervisors, or where will we find out the point of contact for our district?
Okay, so I'm glad that you're saying that, because really this project isn't going to be a project that is referred into by outside by the public. This collaborative is, so the only way to get referred into it is for outreach to find you on the street, or to walk into a shelter, a Pathways to Home shelter. The purpose of this is so that when street outreach workers and shelter providers are providing services in the street, they have resources available to them. So it's not a project that would be referred to by the community. It's a project that is that street outreach is meant to identify individuals that for whatever reason can't or will not come in for services themselves. So these resources are meant for our street outreach workers and our shelter providers. Did that answer your question,
Okay.
Amy?
It sort of does. So basically, each of our districts or our cities or our towns, we have to find the street outreach. Because I have beds. I have had empty beds in my recovery residences, and I understand the barriers to entry, the housing first model. We don't operate the housing first model, but this next home I was considering, because the need seems really great to be able to rapidly house individuals.
Amy,
And I'm not.
Amy, these projects would not be a good fit for the model that you're using. My supervisor, Miss Rashana Walker, asked for your contact information because she does have she has an opportunity that would match perfectly with the model that that your homes use. So while this probably isn't a good fit, we would, there are other avenues and other places for you in our continuum of care.
No, for sure. And that's the thing. I wanted to actually expand and get out of my comfort zone and try the housing first model. I was a landlord for 20 years before I did, recovery residences.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not against by any sense the housing first model. I think it's necessary. But I would be interested in definitely talking about both of them. So if I were to have this home, it's an 11-bedroom home, 5,000 square feet, lots of individual rooms in a safe neighborhood. But the problem is it's in Murrieta, Temecula, and I feel that there's a lot of NIMBYism within the government about, but there's a need. There are homeless women that are reaching out to me that work in Murrieta and work in Temecula and have family there, and they're shipping them off to Riverside. So I guess
you're interested in shifting your model, Miss Amy, then we'd love to receive a proposal from you.
Great, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Roshana, did you have anything to say?
No, I was just gonna let Amy know that I just put my information in the chat and we can speak offline about ways to for your ways of uses for your other projects, your sober
Thank
living
you.
projects.
Thank you, Roshana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow, 45 minutes. That's impressive that that we went through all that in 45 minutes and answered the questions. Is there any other questions that anybody has? This will be the last chance before, unless after we adjourn this meeting, if you do have any specific questions, then they will have to be formally provided to coc@rivco.org, and they need to be answered by May 16th, or I'm sorry, they need to be submitted by May 16th. All answers will be provided to the COC website by the 21st. So this is the last chance to ask any burning questions. After the meeting's adjourned, you will have to submit questions for the formal process, like I just said previously. Okay, well, I'll take your silence as I've done a great job answering all the questions. I look forward to getting any questions that you might think of next week. And good luck with this competitive bidding process. I know I have applied for a couple of grant opportunities in the past month or so, and they can be stressful. I think that you have ample time. Today's just the 6th. We have darn near a whole month left. So good luck. And we hope to see you all on the award list. I hope you all have a wonderful day.